Hi everyone, this is Jadu from Property Framework, and today I want to talk about investing in regional areas. So, if you've got a fairly tight budget of around 300 to 400K and you can't buy in any one of the capital cities and are looking to get into one of the regional areas, but are not sure what factors you need to look into before getting into these areas, then this episode is for you because I cover the main things that you need to look at before you get into these areas so that you can make a good investment. So let's get into this. So the first one, population. You want the area to have a population of at least 20,000 people. To check this, you can go to the ABS website and key in the area, and it'll show you how many people live in that area or that population of that area. So look for areas where the population is at least 20,000. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the economy. You want the area to have a diversified economy. So when I say diversified economy, it means something like this, where you have a wide range of industries supporting uh, the area. That means that if one industry fails to perform, then people still have jobs coming in from the other industries. To give you examples, let's look at areas like Townsville and Gladstone. So many years ago, Townsville and Gladstone were kind of a bit reliant on the mining industry. So when the mining industry went down and jobs were lost, people did not need to live in these areas and they moved out of those areas, and that caused property prices to drop. But since then, Townsville and Gladstone have recovered from this and they have diversified their economies. In fact, Townsville is one of those stories with strongest economies recovery, and Townsville has really come out of that, and it's now a really strong economy. So that emphasizes the need to have a diversified economy, because when you have the reliance on one industry or one type of employment, then if that industry fails, then you don't have any other industry to rely on. Okay, the next one is infrastructure projects. Now, in regional areas, one of the main things that you need to look at is infrastructure projects, because this is what really drives up demand in these areas. Now, if you want to find more information about infrastructure projects, you could go to Infrastructure Australia, or you could go to the state infrastructure website for each state and find out what kind of infrastructure projects are happening in that area. But not all infrastructure projects will have the same impact. For example, hospitals will have a much larger impact than an energy project. Why is that? So let's look at some infrastructure projects. Like, for example, Toowoomba is going to have a new hospital coming up very soon. Bundaberg is going to have a new hospital coming up in the next few years. Townsville is going to have a hospital expansion. So these are all regional areas. So what happens when there's new hospitals being built? It means that there are doctors, nurses moving into that area. More skilled people are moving into that area. There's more demand for property, and the property prices will automatically have pressure. There will be that pressure on house prices. Okay. And the next thing that you need to look out for is education. Like, for example, tertiary education. Where Townsville is having the James Cook University expansion. That means uh, more lecturers might come into that area, more students are going to come there, and that is going to affect the local rental market and also the sales market, and that will directly impact property prices. You also have other projects like energy projects, and these are more of short-term things because people come to that place just to work on these construction projects, but when the construction project is over, then they move back and the impact is not as good as a hospital project or like a university expansion. So look for different kinds of infrastructure projects that could impact the local real estate market. Okay. Now we looked at infrastructure projects, but the other thing is that the area itself should have basic amenities. Right? You want good schools, you want hospitals, you want an emergency hospital, you want good education centers like tertiary education centers, you want good shopping centers, you want parks, and basically things that people want to live in. And A bonus would be having employment nodes in that area, employment hubs. For example, in Rockhampton, a regional area in Queensland, the Grasmere employment hub industrial area is one of the largest logistics employment hubs in Queensland. And there is a lot of employment happening in that area. And that would mean that people need to live there to take up these jobs. And that would automatically affect the local real estate market there. Okay, and the next point we need to look at is interstate migration. Now, interstate migration into regional areas is not a COVID phenomenon. It did not happen just during the COVID phase. If you look at this graph here, this shows that migration into Queensland, in particular, Queensland has been the strongest. Migration into Queensland has been picking up over the last 10 years. It was places like Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, but right now, even places like Townsville, Cairns, Rockhampton, these areas are getting a lot of interstate migration, people moving into these areas. And the reason is that these areas are affordable, they have a good lifestyle, they have all the facilities in place, jobs are being created, like all the things I just spoke about. And that makes them good areas to move into. And that's why this interstate migration is happening. So look on a really look down to see where people are moving into, because that where people move into will automatically affect the real estate market in those areas. So these are basically some of the macro level factors that you need to consider when you're going into a regional area. But this isn't enough. You could have all of these factors lining up and buy into an area and have the property declining in value over the next 3 to 4 years. And that's because you don't understand the cycle that market is in. You need to time the entry into the market to really maximize your potential. So how do you really know that? So that means you need to go inside and understand the supply and demand dynamics in that area. For example, a good supply metric would be the listings volume. A good demand metric would be the sales volume. What is that ratio between demand and supply? And using all of this information, you could really find out if this suburb or this area is started another growth cycle. You wouldn't want to go into an area where it's at its peak and it's going to be flat for the next 2 years. So really looking at the data at a micro level to really understand what's going to happen with price movements in the short term, because short term growth is really crucial.